All right, well, we're here with Rebecca Caraveo, also known as Cattie Ness, and she has graciously agreed to be part of my punk story, my punk shoe interview. And so thank you very much for joining us, Rebecca. Rebecca, let's go way back. What was your first punk show?
The first punk show I can remember, my little sister was a punk rocker, and she dragged me out to that farm show at the Dead Kennedys, early 80s. It was actually our friend's grandparents' farm. I think it was on Peach Street. It's very famous in Fresno punk rock lore.
What year was that?
Has to be the late 70s. Maybe 78, 79, something like that. So that was a long, long time ago. Belmont Ballroom. I know we saw the Dickies.
So take me, I know it was a long time ago. Take me back to that first show. What do you remember about walking into that first show? The sights, the smells, the sounds, the people. What memories come flooding to you when you think about that first Dead Kennedy show?
I think it was just super cool because it was outside and there were a lot of our friends there. Punk rock was very new. And I believe it ended up getting kind of out of control. I can't remember if there was a fight there. You know, it was the 70s. I just don't remember too much, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm 4 years older than my sister, so she's got to still be in high school, and I'm about 21 or so, 21. So, you know, I was a big grown-up, probably drinking and smoking weed.
What kind of music were you listening to before you went to CDK? What were you into?
You know, I always have loved all kinds of music, and so I'm going to say in that late 70s, a lot of probably Southern country rock. You know what I'm saying? But by then, it was kind of probably already over, like the Leonard Skinner, Peyton Cash already happened. Music was starting to change. My very good friend, I don't know if you knew Gary Munoz, right, from the old punk rock. So he's like the first, we were music friends in high school. He turned us on a lot, always the newest bands, Blue Oyster Cult, and just all these bands that were like, no one ever heard of in Fresno. And by the late 70s, he was going to San Francisco and seeing punk rock shows and hanging around with the guys from Crucifix. And so years later, I run into him, and I'm all like, take me with you. Take me with you. I want to go to the punk rock shows in San Francisco. And so we stayed with them, and they lived off of Haight-Ashbury, Page Street. And we went to all these underground nightclubs, the Tool and Die, and, you know, it's Jane Wayne County. I just, so many people the Stains from LA, the Mabuhay Gardens. So I really had a nice, fun introduction to the San Francisco scene.
There's one show from that time period from standing out in your mind from San Francisco?
I think the Stains at the Mabuhay Gardens, just for several reasons. One, you know, it's LA versus San Francisco. So it's LA versus San Francisco, and the San Francisco guys just being assholes to the guys, the Stains, you know, throwing spears at them, calling them names, and you know, just punk rock. And the singer is this really, really big guy. I can't remember his name. He's big and tall, and he has all these chains around his neck. Like big, like dog chain thing. And he just gets so mad, and he throws a beer as hard as he can, like a full can of beer, because they've been throwing these cans of beer. And it's coming right at me, and it hit the seat right next to me. So that was like my Fresno, like, oh my God. Well, the next day, because we were friends with J.C. Francis, Jimmy Crucifix at the time, and we went over to the Tool and Die where they were staying, and JC's friend Bill Halen, right, not Van Halen, but Bill Halen, he had a punk rock band, Bill Halen. That was his place where he lived, and those guys were all staying there. So, you know, the next day it was all mellow and cool.
Sure. Did you go to any LA shows during that time?
I did not.
Yeah.
No.
I wonder how the scenes were different back then compared to those early shows in San Francisco. How were the punks in the Stains band different than the punks in San Francisco?
Right.
Yeah.
I get that. And you know what's funny is my husband was in several punk rock bands in the late 80s in LA. 'Cause he's from Southern California.
Yeah.
So Half Off and Shot to Hell and different things like that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny to like run into the 45s. I'm like, hey, isn't this good? You know, Raging Records and whatever. Yeah, so no, I didn't even start going into Los Angeles on a regular basis until I had my own band with the rockabilly scene.
Yeah, so tell us about that. I know you're pretty well known in rockabilly circles with your band Cattie, Ness, and the Revenge. Tell us how you got started to play music.
All right, and it's actually Cattie, and it's okay. It's Cattie because it has nothing to do with my personality.
Okay.
That's always kind of been the joke, right?
Yeah.
And also the fact that Mike Ness was a friend of mine back in the day, and you know, I just have this silly little story where his last name is a suffix, right? And he was just playing around with band names and you know the whole Cattie thing. Because most of our songs were kind of funny, tongue-in-cheek, no crying in your beer songs. I'd always say, Cattie, don't cry in her beer, you know. Just powerful women's songs, funny women's songs, that kind of thing. So yeah, we started going there. We started doing the first LA shows. I mean, we did first start playing in San Francisco.
What year was that?
Okay, our first out of town show is Jerry's Pizza in Bakersfield with Hayride to Hell. And so that's kind of a cool thing in itself, right? Because that's a legendary place. But one of my first rockabilly shows was called Monsters of Punk. And it featured the Paladins and Pearl Harbor. And after that, I decided, the guy who put that on started doing it in San Francisco. He was from San Francisco, and he put on the Greaseball. And I even like remember seeing him because those rockabilly guys really, really stood out. And we were at Chris Isaac in Santa Cruz, and the rockabilly guys come, and they were so cool. You know, they could dance and stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is super weird. I'm from Fresno. All the guys you're lucky they're going to do this thing with you, not spin you around. And you know, and it was, you know, me and my girlfriend were just like, wow, guys that could dance.
And what year was this?
That has to be in about, oh my goodness, mid-90s, about 95.
Yeah.
Because at the end of that year, 94, because at 95 is when I finally used to start my band, because it's like, I can't keep going to San Francisco to see shows.
Yeah.
Let's try to get people to come here.
Now, at that time, was there a rockabilly presence in Fresno or none?
Not really.
No.
I mean, we had rockabilly friends.
Who dressed rockabilly?
And so we kind of started our own thing. Dusty Chance and the All Nighters. It was Lucky Devil and the Lifters. And then I had my band, and there was Arson Roulette. So there was like the three of us, and I essentially became a promoter. My first big band was Big Sandy at Tokyo Garden.
Wow.
And it was...
That's big.
It was. And it was kind of cool because I'd met their manager at Jack Sugar Shack in Hollywood. And we were at a big show at Jim's Place. And it was the last of Bob Will's Cowboys, right? Playboys, the last of his Playboys. There was 3 of them left. And they were playing this show at Jim's Place, right? And it was some kind of swing, Western swing event. And I see Alan Larman, Big Sandy's manager, walking by. And I tell my friend, I said, that's Big Sandy's manager. No, it's not. And I'm like, well, I'm going to find out. And so I did. I went up and I said, hey, we met before, to Alan Larman. He's like, yeah. And he goes, would you like to have Big Sandy come? And I'm all, oh, yeah. Wow. Right? And I'm like, how much? And, it gives me the price. And I'm like, right? Because so I go back to my bandmates and I said, hey, can we each afford to pay like $75 so we can play with the big Sandy? And they're like, yeah, So we, we sold tickets and we sold it out, so we didn't even have to end up paying out of our own pocket.
Was this the start of Tokyo Gardens being like a mecca
Yes.
for rockabilly?
Yes.
Wow.
Right, because that's our first big show. And I had several shows, and then I actually started a monthly show, the Cattie Ness Cafe. And I
Okay.
would have a band come every month, every third Saturday of the month. Cattie Ness Cafe.
And it became well known on the rockabilly circuit, right?
Right, and so we ended up having a lot of people, and we kind of grew out of it. Started having shows. Well, we kind of went to what was the Star Line in those days, but that kind of went south real fast. And Fred from Club Fred was a very good old friend of mine, so he just started letting me, promote shows there and host shows there, or be on shows if he was covering the fee or whatever, so the guarantee.
Yeah.
So, because we were just like working people. Didn't have a lot of extra money to be, I always say being in a band is a really expensive way to support your ego.
Yeah.
Right? Being any kind of an artist is really,
Uh-huh.
right? If you're a painter, a photographer, you end up spending a lot of money before you get the return. And a lot of the time, the return is just emotional. For me, it has always been.
I know about that. Just framing my photos, right? I mean,
Right.
$300 a pop to frame my photos, and if I want to do a show, I'm dropping a couple thousand, maybe.
Right. All right. Someone just asked me, do you want to have another show? And I'm like, I just had one last year at Spectrum, and I'm like, I have...
Unless you have a benefactor or something.
Right, and I have a big art studio over here by Goldstein's, and it's just filled with, thousands of negatives and, pictures and paintings and all my rockabilly clothes.
Yeah.
But it's just, after a while, and,
Mm-hmm.
now it's kind of like, now I want to kind of start sending it on its way.
Yeah. What was the most memorable show that you put on at Tokyo Gardens?
Probably one of my favorites was Deadbolt.
Uh-huh.
Right, scariest band in the world. They're from San Diego. They were kind of like a psychobilly band before there really was psychobilly. Just killer guitars, that kind of thing. They actually came and played my birthday show one year, and they played 2 songs, and we got kicked out because their smoke machine set off the fire alarms, right? Because they had not so much smoke machines, and smoke machines, but they had a grinder that they would grind and send sparks, and the smoke, and it was like, all right. In 10 minutes, Fred was a fireman. In 10 minutes, the fire trucks were there, and we were all kicked out. It was like, really, you guys? Thanks.
Uh-huh.
So, but yeah, Deadbolt's always been one of our favorite kind of psychobilly bands. But the Mutilators from San Francisco, who I love, they came from my very first show that they played with us. It was my first show at the Fulton. Downtown with the Ditch Bank Okies and the Mutilators, and we were so bad we played 6 songs. We were bad. I admit it. We didn't know what we were doing. We basically learned on stage. None of us were musicians at the time. Brad Rogers, I worked with him, and Kim Kilgore, our drummer, and Brad was the only one who knew how to play the guitar. So he was kind of teaching me, and he had also been a drummer for the Mofo Party Band, so he's kind of teaching Kim to play the drums. And it took we play for our friends and people who liked us. They weren't too hard on us, but it was about 4 or 5 years before we actually started going out of town and having gigs, and
Sure.
It's been about 30 years now, so I learned how to play. Basically.
Yep. For those who don't know, you're based in Fresno. Then and now, or pick one. Is the Fresno music scene different compared to, say, the Bay Area or anywhere else? Is there a unique quality to Fresno? How would you describe Fresno and the Fresno music scene?
Well, one of the things that I noticed the most. I can't say about it anymore because now our music scene is not so cool. I'm just going to say that because, you know, we're in the Tower District and we got 2 bars that let music play for 2 hours. What the heck is that? I'm telling the kids. I'm like, you know, we see the sun come up. What are you guys are looking at your phones, sitting there drinking beer, right? So I don't get it. There's no way to have a scene. There's just nothing. That's how I see it. But in the old days, one of the things that stood out the most from the people who visited and came to play from LA or San Francisco, or even Germany. We had the New Niles from Spain. We had the Hangmen from England. Their things that they noticed the most was how nice everybody was.
Wow.
You know, because we're not big city enough to have an attitude.
Sure.
I said, yeah, we're just happy you're here, and we appreciate you being here to play with us, and you know, being able to share something different with our crowd and our scene, and we really had a really big scene for many years.
Mm-hmm.
I put on a lot of shows for, I want to say, at least 10 years. But you know, the thing
Wow.
was, we started with playing out of town, and we didn't have, you know, I started not putting on as many shows because we could go play in LA with bigger stars and
Sure.
bigger shows and cooler things, and you know, and it all kind of comes and goes. But you know, it's ended up where I've played in France 3 times.
Wow.
And we've played at Viva Las Vegas a couple of times. And we played a lot of festivals, but Viva is like the king of the rockabilly festivals. And we actually got married there, and we played and got married the same event, you know. So yeah, it's always been a really big part of my life. A couple of years ago, I was in France, did Rockin' Tonight, and Eddie Angel, one of my favorite guitar players, was the guitar player who backed me up on the stage. So I was like, okay, I can retire now. What else am I going to do? You know what I mean? It's like, I get to play with these really cool people and hang out with really cool people and just be backstage with them. I don't even care if I play.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here with, and this is super weird because the 2 coolest guys there, Eddie Angel and Sonny George from the Planet Rockers, 73 and 75.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird, right? This is what it's come to, and but that's so awesome. They're still rocking, and crowds love them, and I love them, and it's just a big honor.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What are your top 3 bands? I know it's hard to pick out 3 bands, but your top 3 of all time.
of all time,
Either bands or albums.
all right. All right, well, so my favorite band obviously is Social Distortion.
Okay.
Right.
Why?
You know, I think a lot of personal history, and it's basically a lot of the older 90s type things. Mike's solo albums. I know I typed up a lot of words for him.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? For Big Iron or whatever, the things where he did some of the country covers, and I really love that he did that because I love country music too. So that's that whole thing. You know, I was a DJ for the big Fresno Barn Dance, classic country. I have that whole Americana range from punk rock to classic country.
So there's this country influence. Did your parents listen to country music? Is that why you got?
Absolutely not.
Oh. So in high school you just gravitated toward
Well, you know
old
what
country.
happened? My mom is from Belgium,
Uh-huh.
and she was very, very straight-laced, you know, Catholic school her whole life, girls' school. And she was actually very, very horrified by country music because, you know, murder, cheating,
Wow.
all these things, and we were kind of not allowed to listen to it. And so by the time we moved to Fresno, my dad was in the service, so when he retired and we moved to California, moved back from Germany, my Girl Scout leader was from Texas. And I spent a lot of time, her daughter was my best friend, I spent a lot of time, and so we knew all those songs, you know, You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man, and all these things that were like, you know, I don't know. It was just very, very shady, and I guess that's why I was like, oh, totally drawn to it, because my mom didn't want us to listen to
Yeah.
it. And, you know, we only had 2 radio stations. We had Kino and KMAK.
That's right, yeah.
13 and 1340. So if you didn't like one song, you were totally So for me, I never really distinguished between them so much, because even, you know, in those days, in the 60s and 70s, all that rock and roll music, I saw Black Sabbath open for Rod Stewart, right, at the Madera Speedway.
Wow.
With Leonard Skinner. And so you have 3 completely different types of rock music, but it wasn't different to us. It was just, you know, something like someone doing something different.
Wow. Okay, so Distortion's the first. Second favorite band
My
or
second favorite band would probably be Creedence Clearwater Revival. That was my first favorite band. So there again is that little country. I don't know if it was a simple beat.
Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of the thing with the rockabilly that I noticed with that simple beat. A lot of, if we play and there's kids there, they gravitate to that right away. That's happy music and they like it.
Yeah.
They don't understand it, but they know they can bop to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'd say maybe in third place would be Neil Young.
Okay.
Again, kind of rock and roll, kind of country, kind of the godfather of grunge, isn't he, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And again, all those different genres. Excuse me. Yeah, really, I love music. So, you know, whether it was Marty Robbins or Rod Stewart, in fact, I always think the funniest thing is, I loved Rod Stewart too as a kid. The Wild Side of Life, Atlantic Crossing, mid-60s, 70s. And that's a great song. Well, you know, 5-6 years later, I hear some country guy singing it all slow and weird, and I'm thinking, why do I know the words to this song? It's Freddie Fender doing it.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh, it's the Wild Side of Life, right? Merle Travis wrote that song. And so you don't even know. And I think that's one thing that I try to share with my students now is there's not a lot of new stuff. There's a lot of recycled stuff, photography-wise as well. It's like all your little cutesy things on your photographs. Those were real things in the old
That's
days.
right, yeah. You had a Bernie Dodge.
Right. You know, or you did your Polaroid transfer, whatever. Those effects, or like one of my favorites is light flares, right? I'm like, well, that just meant you damaged your film. Now it's something they add.
Oh, pretty cool.
Yeah, and you're just like, no. But, you know, it's all relative, and
yeah,
we all get to kind of do what we want. That's what I like to think. We kind of get to do what we want.
So your band, Cattie Ness, what's the connection to Ness, Mike Ness?
Well, the connection is basically just the name. I asked Mike, I said, I'm thinking of using your name for this, and he thought it was very sweet and funny. And he actually had some other remarks to make about the rockabilly scene that I won't share with you, because you know he's from Southern California.
Oh, you mean the scene in Fresno?
The scene in Southern California,
okay.
the rockabilly scene, and so because we didn't really have a scene in Fresno at that time when I was first starting it. Because the thing is, we kind of wanted to be a punk rock band, but we didn't even know how to play, so we certainly couldn't play fast, right? And I had been going to a couple of little rockabilly shows, and I'm like, how about this? You know, it's not as fast, and you know, it's got a good beat. We could all kind of play to it, and so I kind of railroaded them into the rockabilly thing. And you know, we will do stuff, some Social D songs or stuff like that, just you know, for fun, because our crowd loves Social Distortion, right? You know, the Hootenanny, Mike's the star, but so was you know, Chuck Berry, or so was Bo Diddley, or so were the Knitters, or you know, so many big names, the Blasters, and all different but all the same, and all well beloved by everybody. Just kind of the way it is when you love a certain kind of music, and everything's connected. Everybody's friends.
See, you're good friends with Mike Ness.
We were back in the old days.
Yeah.
There were some, you know, he had a lot of problems. He had problems with his record company, and he had a little boy who is now a grown-up boy, but he and who is now his wife. They weren't married then, but he had a real rough childhood, and it was real important to be a good dad to his kids. And which is really an honorable thing. How can you even fault somebody who wants to be a decent human being and has to fulfill their duties?
Yeah.
That's how I always, come to terms with all the things that have happened. There's good people out there, there's bad people out there, and the bad ones you just want to forget about. The good ones you always will appreciate. That's like the whole thing with my picture. I said, I promise I'll always mention your name, and I will always have this on stage with me, right? And I do. I always have it at my microphone. I always make, either in a song, I'll make a reference to him or something funny, whether the people catch it or not,
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and 30, 40 years later, it's come a long way for him too, There's Mike Ness Day in a few weeks.
Wow.
At Fullerton, where he grew up. They gave him the keys to the city, and there's times where I'm sure he didn't think he was gonna make it out alive, let alone 40-year anniversary, big deal. Especially losing that Sony, being signed to Sony, and then losing that. I was like. But, Sony in those days, I think they lost a lot of good people. And I don't know why felt like they needed to put money into something else. Because there were other bands, too, I could think of. D.B. Cooper, I think, was on Sony and stuff like that. The bands that I liked. And it's like, what are you doing? We want more, not less. We don't want them to go away. But, he's always persevered. So, yeah, I feel real proud of him. And, glad to be able to be one of the Nesses.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Rebecca, what does punk rock mean to you? What is punk rock?
Well, that's another thing I share with my students. It's like being able to think for yourself and making things happen, and not waiting around for approval or someone else to make things happen. You get in there and you do it yourself, and like we were talking when your student walked by, it's the young people that make change, and if they don't have that backbone or foresight or just the will to do it, they're gonna miss out. They're gonna miss out, and it's the people who make things happen. Mm-hmm. And so you look at these guys now, and they're all college professors, right? Right? You think about it, the guys from Bad Religion, whatever, me, right? Here we are teaching and helping, and that's what I try to get my kids, because I teach photography and it's a humanities class. I try to get them to think out of the box. You have your talent in you. You have something to share with the world. You might not know what it is right now, but sooner or later, it's going to pop up and you're going to go, oh yeah, that's what I need to be doing.
Yeah.
That's what I should have been doing. I better start doing it now. Right? For me, I didn't start playing music until I was 30-something years old. I always wanted to.
Yeah. Along those lines, when you first started your band, was there any inhibitions at all being a woman? I mean, did you have to fight it?
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. It was ugly. If that's what you're asking. And not so much, a lot of my guy friends were musicians already, right? A lot of my friends that are still my friends today. And it was always like, bakey. Just shake your head like, you need to stay home and forget about it, right? And I'm more like, watch me now.
Wow.
Right? Because it was kind of like, Cattie Ness and the Revenge. I love cats and I love Mike, and Revenge is for the assholes.
Yeah.
Right? You told me to stay home. Well, I'm the one who's played on TV in Paris.
Where did you get that that boldness? Was there, did you have female figures that you looked up to, or you were
think
born with it, or?
I think my dad had all girls, and he was a soldier.
Oh.
Right, so we weren't baby, we never were babied. We weren't, I mean, we're still little girls in the 60s with our dresses and stuff, but we were very independent, and I don't know, I guess it is something you're born with. Like, I'm not going to let you tell me not to do it, because now I'm going to want to do it. I'm going to want to do it more, and I'm going to do it until I've done it and I'm over it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like playing music. I'm a union stagehand. It's kind of the same thing. That's heavy, hard work. You need to know about how sound works and electricity works. And like, if you can do it, I can do it. Right?
Yeah.
And, maybe now I'm not quite as strong, but in the union for 20 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, girls rock. I'm not going to take any, I'm also from the 70s, so from that whole women's lib movement.
Yeah. So, along those lines also, how has, like, the punk rock experience and rockabilly experience, how's that all that made you the woman you are today?
I think it's just made me stronger. Given me a lot of opportunities to do things that if you stay home, you're just not going to get to do. It's that whole love of music and being fearless. I like to make friends with people. Made friends with rockabilly people in France, rockabilly guys and girls, promoters. Got to play. Just putting yourself out there. I think I just try to put myself out there and be a, like an inspiration to other people to do the same kind of a thing. Please go ahead and do something with your life, or at least you don't have to do something super great, but enough that you're going to inspire people because they might be the ones doing something great, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
And why be the one waiting around? I just can't stand that waiting around thing. I want to get out there and do it, and I want to see it. It's like with photography, I went and I photographed in France, and then it was like, I got to go back. And then I went to Paris by myself for a few days. I went to visit my cousins in Belgium, but I called my husband. I said, honey, it's so beautiful here. I don't want to come home. He said, come home. We'll figure out a way you can go back. And so I started a little travel company. I've been doing that for 20 years. And
That's
taking
amazing.
people on trips over there. Yeah, so I photographed, and I'm in the music and history and all these just wonderful things. And it's also why I was asked to be a teacher. They're like, come and be a teacher. And I'm like, I don't want to be around a bunch of kids. And they're like, no. You can maybe inspire them to go out and do things you did. School did that for you, and I'm saying most definitely did. Because I didn't even do photography until I graduated from college and took photography to congratulate myself. And then I thought, why haven't I been doing this all along? Yeah. So there goes another X amount of years at school doing photography.
Yeah.
And then here I am all these years later being the teacher. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's super awesome.
So tell us about these shoes you brought.
My beautiful shoes are probably from about 1960. They are made out of what is called pony hair, which is pony hair, but they're dyed in the traditional leopard print. This is a very popular company in the early 60s.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And what kind of history do they have with you?
I bought them at Retro Rag here in the tower, probably in about 95. So I've had them myself. Now they're more like an art piece for me. I don't necessarily want to wear them so much anymore, but I do not want to part with them either, because for leopard print shoes from that era, and to be real, you know what I mean, with the fur and everything, you're just not going to find that. You're just not going to find that. And now everything is plastic anyway, and right? Or it's Chanel and it costs $1,000. It's like.
So where have these shoes taken you?
I've worn them in Paris. I've worn them in Las Vegas, all over LA, just basically on tour with me. It just depends what what outfits were designated for the shows. Mm-hmm. I really love the clothes. I had reproduction 50s clothes. It's just easier to play music in because it's not as fragile. That's something when you're thinking of vintage, a lot of fabric that is very old can break, literally just break. Not rip, but just wrong, it can break just on a seam or what have you. So that has, that's been another cool thing, is the girlfriends who became dressmakers and did all the reproduction clothing and still do that to this day and have nice companies that sell these repro dresses that are just way overpriced, but hey, of a way better quality than anything else you're really going to get out there.
Tell us about your jacket.
My jacket I've had for very, very many years. I have some new patches. My mic patch that I got finally sewed on. This means rocker in Finnish.
Okay.
I did an interview with a magazine from Finland. DMF punk rock band. My old drummer Johnny Rage. That was his band. We played Ratfink a couple of times.
Wow.
We played Ratfink the very first year, and it was the year Big Daddy actually passed away. He passed away in April, and we played in July. So that was really kind of a sad, bittersweet type thing. This super cool one right here, Fresno Swim Club. Fresno Swim Club was, in the 70s, was part of the Fig Garden Swim Club. It was Fig Garden Swim Club, I think. And Heather Green, who I went to school with, was going to be in the Olympics that year.
Wow.
And the cool thing about it is my friend Dave Gonzalez from the Paladins, he stopped me one day in Las Vegas and said, I've been carrying this around for you for like a year. I found it in a...
That's amazing.
I found it in a thrift store, I think he said in Arizona. And so he, I always thought that was super, super cool. This is the Italian version. What else do I have? Oh, yeah, my IATSE patch, International Alliance Theater and Stage Employees. Hillbilly Moon Explosion, one of my favorite psychobilly bands from England.
Cool.
So I've been friends with Oliver since Hotmail, because back when the internet was first new, we met a lot of rockabilly people online before everybody got online, right?
Yeah.
I can't say we met a lot of people, but when you're in a small community like that, to this day, 30 years later, people are still my
friends. Yeah.
Yeah, and we see them in Las Vegas or in LA or wherever we happen to be. When I played in France last year, it was Dave and Deke from LA. So it's my LA friends are there, and just all kinds of cool little things. And I think, you're from Fresno, you got to have a possum.
Yeah.
My friend Kayla did that. So, and the really cool thing is, I'm just going to show you, and don't ask me who gave me this because I will just recall him Beetlejuice.
Wow, that's great.
That is from Elvis's last tour.
Wow.
There were satin jackets, and it actually was on the front. And my friend got it for me in a thrift store up in San Francisco.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was super cool.
That's fantastic.
And I actually have a photo book of one of Elvis's photographers that he signed.
Wow.
I like this one the best, Bill.
Yeah.
Elvis Presley. And I'm like, Elvis touched this. and I'm totally all about the vibe.
Yeah.
Right? If Elvis touched it, or we play at Jack Sugar's Shack, I'd go rub on my feet on Gene Vincent's star out in front of Jack Sugar's Shack, or, I just want the vibe.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, Cattie, it's been a great interview. Do you have any closing words?
I just keep rocking. I'm just happy to be here and sharing stuff, and I'm just thankful for all my friends who are still here and the ones who've gone on too, right? especially from the old punk rock days. We've lost a lot of people, and I have a million stories. I got, I don't know if you've seen and I didn't take them, the social distortion images from the Wilson Theater, the black and whites that Mike Kennedy took. And it's Steve Daniels sitting on the side of the stage watching Mike.
Wow.
Yeah. So, a lot of people, because I have sisters, a lot of younger people were my friends. And so even younger, the old punk rock guys, young punk rock guys, they were then.
Yeah.
And, I just really appreciate everybody that's passed through my life and, shared stuff with me and inspired me to run away from them. Well, that kind of thing too, right? Because that's what we learned in life. Who's the good guys, who's the bad guys, and things that make us happen.
Yes.
So,
well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.